The reason most aspiring property developers never get started into property development is their approach to land finding. In this video, what I'm going to do is talk about 3 distinct ways that you can find land and look at the advantages and disadvantages of each of those, and which one I believe you should be following in order to kickstart your property development journey or to accelerate its growth depending on what stage it's at the moment. Incidentally, if you haven't subscribed, then please subscribe and support this channel. Think of it as your way of paying for free content. That subscribe means an awful lot to us. Let's look at an analogy to guide us through this land finding process. Think of the small independent local store, independently owned. They're selling retail products and they go to the wholesaler in order to buy those products and then mark them up and sell them at the retail prices through their stores. The supermarket, on the other hand, ignores the wholesaler and goes direct to the manufacturer, buys those products from the manufacturer and then takes them and sells them in their supermarkets at generally a higher margin than the local store is going to be able to do. So what I want to do is to look at the relationship between the retailer, the wholesaler and the manufacturer and how that relates to land. So who's the retailer of land? We need to think of the likes of Rightmove or estate agents, whether they be advertising online or whether you're walking into their store. The advantages are generally it will have planning permission in place. Sometimes it will have full planning permission in place and may even have building control regulations being satisfied, or building warrant as it's referred to in Scotland. That means that you can buy the land on the Friday and start work on the building on the Monday. Particularly appeals to people who are self-builders, who are more interested in location, views, and what that has to offer. After all, that's an emotional decision and it suits them because that's somewhere they're going to live, and there's nothing wrong with that entirely. As a developer though, I believe that many of the disadvantages outweigh that. The first being is often overpriced. The second is it's often got far too much competition. In other words, there's a lot of people chasing after it. Tends to be much smaller sites, so usually 1 to 2 houses. It may only have outline planning permission, which means that you've still got to go through that process of achieving full planning and building control regulations. That means that that cost is on you and not the person that you are purchasing it from. You may find that it's overpriced and therefore has a much lower margin. In fact, sometimes the margin can be even completely wiped out because the landowner is taking all of the profit on the advice of the agent themselves, believing that that's what they can sell it for on the open market. There's very little time to do your own due diligence because there tends to be so much competition that you're under pressure to make an offer before it is taken off the market. The other thing is that often once you've got the contract in place, then you're going to have to make the settlement straight away. This is particularly difficult if it's only got outline planning permission, because what a lot of people don't understand is that even though you've got outline planning permission, it doesn't guarantee that you'll get full planning permission, or indeed the full planning permission for the type of house that you are looking to put on there. And there could be lots of constraints that are put in place by the planning process as you go for full planning, and that may make the whole thing totally, if it was indeed in the first place viable, may make it uneconomic to develop. But the fact that you gain planning permission, you're into that conditional offer, that has been met by planning being given, even though it may be very difficult for you to develop it, and therefore you're locked into that at a price that perhaps no longer makes any sense, if indeed it made any sense in the first place. So next then, let's go and have a look at the wholesaler of land. So the wholesaler of land tends to be land agents. Think of the likes of Galbraith's. The advantages of them is you can usually make a conditional offer because they'll often come with no planning or perhaps some planning in terms of outline planning, a vague sort of like so many units can be built on that. Then you would apply for full planning in that situation. There will tend to be Still competition, but maybe to a lesser extent because the sites tend to be larger, but it does give you much more time in order to do your due diligence. You'll usually be able to make a good build profit of somewhere between 20 and 25%. However, all your costs you need to be careful are going to come out of that profit, so you need to make an allowance for that and to make check that the price is right once you've allowed for all those additional costs. Disadvantages is that they may still require full planning to be put in place, and therefore if you're paying the price that they're asking, that expenditure is going to come out of your pocket and not the landowner. Secondly, they may be larger than suits your purposes. They could be 50 to 100 plus houses, and therefore that could be a real struggle for certainly a new aspiring property developer, but even a more seasoned one may struggle with that number of houses. There may be a requirement to make a contribution towards social housing or build social housing. So if it's more than 4 units in Scotland or more than 9 units in the rest of the UK, that will be a provision that will be attached to the planning process, and you will need to fund that, which is obviously an expenditure that you need to be able to build into your particular program. Usually you'll have to pay up front. You may have a conditional offer on full planning being achieved, and then payment will then be due, and that obviously has a significant impact on your cash flow because there will still be building regulations that have to be satisfied, and that could take some time to put in place, and therefore you'll be paying interest on the money that you have borrowed for that period of time until you're able to break ground. Manufacturer of land will think of the landowner. In other words, you're going direct to the person who owns the land, and that has many advantages. First of all, there's going to be no competition because you're going direct to them. This is land that is not on the market, it's not publicly advertised, and so therefore nobody else knows about it. You're able to negotiate the right deal because you're able to properly evaluate how much the land is worth and to make an assessment and show the landowner this is what you are prepared to pay. You're able to carry out your full due diligence without any pressure, again because nobody else is in the scenario of looking to buy this piece of land. You offset the price of any investigations, planning permission, planning fees, architects' fees, quantity surveyors, anybody else involved in the process, applying for building regulations. You offset all those costs against the purchase price and therefore are able to really get a substantial profit. So you're going to make 2 profit centers. One is going to be the build profit, which is generally not going to be anything less than 25% of the gross development value. Gross development value is going to be the value of the total site at its selling value. And then the second is because you are engaging in increasing the value of that land, you share with the landowner that uplift in value. And that is also before that is after all the costs for obtaining that permission and increasing that value have been taken out. You're able to secure this land with very little money down, and you only have to pay for the land if you structure it properly just prior to you commencing on the work. This then allows you to build a pipeline of land deals so that you can have one falling from the other. So as you complete one development, you're ready to move into the next one because you've already got that lined up. And that makes for a much more efficient business and allows you to accelerate your growth unlike any other part of the property industry. So if you were buying buy-to-lets, you have to sell one buy-to-let before you can buy them, or you start looking for the next buy-to-let. Whereas in this situation, you can have one following the other. So it's a nice domino effect working in your favor. So what's the disadvantages? They're actually very little The main one is that you are going to take on the responsibility for applying for planning permission. But even in that, you can mitigate the risk. So it's really not as daunting as it may seem, but it's the one thing that puts people off. They see something that doesn't have planning permission and they immediately walk away from it. Actually, if you are serious about becoming a property developer, then that's a skill that you need to master. As a small developer, you want to be buying land direct from the landowner. This allows you to make a build profit of about 20 to 25%. This allows you to make a land uplift profit, which can be from 33% to almost infinity. You need to be checking out the site properly with little competition in the background, and therefore taking the pressure away so you can do your due diligence properly. And then you need to be securing it with very little money down so as that you are able to create your own land pipeline, giving you the most efficient model for a property development business. So if you would like more information on how you might do this, join our waitlist, because we have a new program that we will be launching very soon for a very small select group of people, which will be fully supported through this program. So if you'd like further details on that when they and as they are released, then join our waitlist. There'll be a link up here, or is it up here? And then there'll be a link in the description below. So join us on that program, or at least on the wait list, so that you can get further information about that program as and when it becomes available. Until next time, take care, and I look forward to speaking to you then. Bye-bye.